Good afternoon, I'm Keith Erickson. It's January 12, 2007, and we are continuing our interviews with World War II veterans that have connections to Rock County. This afternoon, we're going to be talking with Ted Aanenson, and I'd like to start by just asking you to give me your name and where you were born and raised.
My name is Ted Aanenson. I was born and raised on a farm 3 miles south of Laverne in 1926.
We might have to start that again.
That's right.
I'm
It's
sorry.
okay. That's
fine. No, that's all right. That's just housekeeping stuff.
Okay.
We're fine with that.
Could you have to start again? Because I didn't have I need to get focus and everything.
okay. Well, we can have you just introduce yourself.
Yeah, just introduce yourself.
Ready?
one
And
more
just
time
go ahead.
for us,
Who
Ted.
you are? Okay.
My name is Ted Aanenson. I was born here 3 miles south of Laverne in 1926.
Can you tell us what's unique about your family with regard to the World War II?
I have 6 brothers. We were all served in World War II. My oldest brother's name was Annan. He was drafted in February of 1942. He served in the Signal Corps in Alaska all the while through World War II. I don't remember what month he was discharged, but second brother's name was Alex. He was also from Laverne. He took his training in Texas, but he had arthritis so bad that he got a medical discharge after 3 months. My other brother named Arnie, he was drafted in June 9 of 42. He took his training in Louisiana, in Camp Polk, I think it was. Then he was shipped out from San Francisco. He left San Francisco, crossed the equator, went down below Australia, and they stopped in India for a little bit. They left India, and then he was stationed in Persia, which is now Iran. He's with the Persian Gulf Command. He was a quartermaster corps. Towards the end of the war, then they closed that, and he was transferred to Germany. He was in Germany, I don't know how many months, and then he was, at the end of the war, he was shipped back home to New York, and he wound up in Laverne. He went all the way around the world. My other brother, Selmer, he was the only one that was not in the Army. He enlisted in the Navy. He spent most of his time in New York City. He was a machinist mate, second class. By the way, we're the ones that I mentioned before, were sergeants. Selmer was a second-class machinist mate in the Navy. Spent most of the time in New York City. In 44, he was transferred to Hawaii. Next was my 2 brothers, Edwin and myself. Edwin was 1 year older than I am. I registered the draft June 6 of 44. Got a questionnaire in July, report for physical in September. Edwin and I were inducted into the Army on Friday, October 13th, 1944. We both took our training in Camp Joseph T. Robinson, Little Rock, Arkansas. Edwin got pneumonia when we was there. He wound up in the hospital, so we were split. He was still in camp when I came home on furlough. They called it delay en route. Was home for 7 days. Then we were transferred to Fort Ord, California. Then from Fort Ord, we were shipped out. By the way, we were supposed to learn how to swim before we got on the ship. I never did learn how to swim, but they took me anyway. It wasn't because I didn't try, I tried. But then we went south of Hawaii, crossed the equator, and wound up in Hollandia, New Guinea, where we refueled. We were 5,000 troops on the ship. We also had the Oklahoma stage show on the ship, part of it. So we were serenaded quite often on the way over that far.
Was that a USO show? Ted?
USO.
Let's talk a little bit about that as long as we're right there.
I'll try to remember. I don't remember the full names, but we used to play cards with three of the girls, you know, casino and different
Tell
things.
Keith about it, though. Talk
Yeah.
to Keith about it.
And they put on a show quite often, maybe 3 or 4 times is all on the way over, you know. But it was great. But they got off the ship in Hollandia, New Guinea.
Oh, they did.
So they were not with us any longer than that time. Then we left. We were there overnight, and I looked out on the shore, and I saw these here bare-breasted women wearing, and if you saw the temperature down there, just on the other side of the equator, at noon there's no shadow. There they were carrying these big old baskets of fruit or whatever on top of their heads, you know, very erect. And I said, please don't let us out here.
You need to tell me why you didn't want to get out.
Well, I saw those people didn't want anything like that. And the island itself, New Guinea, looked real rough. There were parts of it that were never recaptured in World War II. Then we left. The next day we left Hollandia, New Guinea, joined a convoy heading towards Philippine Islands. We didn't know where we were going. Short distance up, the water got into the engine room and our ship stopped. We were by ourselves. Don't recall how long before they got the engines going again. And they really put the pedal to the metal, and we caught up with the convoy. We landed in Manila Harbor April 12th, 1945, the same day that Franklin Roosevelt died. It was a sad day on the ship. Everybody wondered what happens now. On the 13th of October, we went off the ship, went down the rope ladders, got on LSDs, and got up to Manila Harbor. Got off the LSDs, and we were met by a general named Chase. He was a commander of the 38th Infantry Division. Some of us that were on the ship went to the 38th, that they went to different divisions. On the 13th, we got on the convoy trucks and headed north by Clark Field. The 14th of April, we walked up this mountain at Zambales Mountains, they call them, to join the Company E, 149th Regiment. First night there, we dug foxholes. Was up there for 30 days. We dug foxholes every night. We were on watch 2 hours, 2 men in a foxhole. 2 hours, we woke the next guy up, and how we knew the 2 hours was up, I don't know. After 30 days, we came down for maybe a week, then we went back up. One of the reasons that we were in the Zambales Mountains, the 38th Division had already captured Bataan. The Zambales Mountains were north of Bataan, and the reason we were up in the Zambales Mountains was to stop the Japanese from escaping to Lingayen Gulf, which was north of there. Lingayen Gulf is where the Japanese invaded in 1942. To stop them from getting up to Lingayen Gulf and heading back to Japan. From there, we went to.
Talk to Eric.
Yeah,
Keith
you gotta,
over
you
there.
gotta,
Yeah.
yeah. keep talking
From
to
then,
me. Yeah.
when Zambales Mountains were secured, you've all heard of that big mountain Mintabo. Was up on top of that, and I'll tell you more about that later on. Then we went to the Wawa Dam, which was on Sierra Madre Mountains. The Wawa Dam was a dam that held back the water for water supply in Manila. The Japanese still held it, and one fellow from the 151st Infantry Regiment, he received the Congressional Medal of Honor for something that he did at that dam. He stopped them from blowing it up. On the bottom of a well there, I noticed a camera. So I got the camera, and it was a Japanese camera, and I kept it all the while I was in the Army. Then on August 9th, we were in a foxhole in the Sierra Madre Mountains, where they dropped the first atomic bomb. One fellow from, we called him Grandpa Levy. He was from New York. He says, "My God, what's going to happen now?" Then, of course, 3 days afterwards, they dropped the second one. Then we got the peace fielders. We stayed up there in foxholes until August 2, when the treaty was signed, and then we were sent back, never to go back up in the mountains. 38th Division killed 26,000 plus Japanese soldiers in the Philippine Islands, more than any other division that was there. After the war, the 38th Division was deactivated, but you had to have points to come back home. I didn't have enough points, so we were transferred to the 96th Division. We trained the Filipino Army. The Filipino Army, at that time in the Philippine Islands, they had what they called the Hakbalahaps, which were communist. We trained them to take care of the Hakbalahaps, which they did the best they could. In September, I had enough points to come home. I remember the first day on the ship laying in Manila Harbor, and it was the ocean or the water was just as smooth as a table, and just swaying back and forth. A lot of the guys got sick from that, but I went and ate breakfast, and somebody else says, "You want my ticket to eat breakfast?" And I said, "Sure." I never got sick. Then on the way home, they noticed a typhoon on the way. So we went north of Midway, and we landed and we caught the brunt of the typhoon. We were not allowed to go up. We had to stay downstairs on the ship. We wound up in San Francisco, I think it was on the 13th of October of 46, I'm sorry. We got on a troop train, Pullman. We had the top booth, really living. Then I remember we stopped in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the USO served us coffee and donuts. Then we headed to Fort Sheridan, Illinois. There were so many getting discharged that they couldn't process everybody at that time. So they said, "We want you to go home for 1 week and then come back." There were a number of us, and we stayed at one of the posh hotels in Chicago. I figured, well, when we come back, we'll be able to go back to the same hotel. I was by myself when we came back. I went to the hotel. We don't have any rooms. So here I am in Chicago. I don't know a soul. Where do I stay? I walked around and I see the Salvation Army. So that night I slept in the Salvation Army. The next day I got up to Fort Sheridan, where I got my discharge. That was in October of 46. I had some time coming, terminal leave coming, so they paid me until December 6th of 1946 when I was officially discharged. My brother Edwin, when he left, he was transferred to Germany. He served in the artillery over there in Germany during when the war was still on. He was there in May of 45, shortly before the German surrender. He came home also in 1946. My other brother, Erling, he was the last one home, and he left in August of 1946, and he wound up in Korea. So, and then of course, I was only in Laverne for a short time after I got discharged, so we never talked about our experiences.
Would you please share with us, if you can, what type of a feeling, a response your parents had with having 7 sons go into the military? Do you recall any discussion?
No, it had to have been tough.
You could say that my folks.
My parents, it must have been really tough, you know, and I remember when I came home discharged, and my mom stayed, we got home at about midnight, and she was still up waiting for me to get home, you know.
What was that like? Please tell us.
A thrill, you know, finally home. You know. And
all-
she was very, very happy, you know. But 2 of my brothers, 3 of my brothers, 4 of my brothers were already home. So 5 of my brothers were already home. And I was the 6th one to come home. And I wasn't in Laverne when my other brother came home from Korea. But he was in Korea during the World War II also.
Okay. Well, I'd like to kind of go back. This is just a wonderful story.
Hang on a minute. Ted, did your folks ever talk to you guys about it later on as you got older? Did they ever share anything with you guys about what that must have been like?
We never talked about it. Never talked about it. Other than I got a case of malaria. I got malaria when I was overseas also, and I used to have a problem with that when I came home. If I drink some beer and stuff like that, and then I'd get sick. So I quit drinking and never got sick again. And they were worried about that, you know, so. And I don't know, we never talked much about it.
Amongst the brothers, you never said much either?
Well, just teasing one another, more of a teasing, you know, and I was, you know, I was the only one that was in the battlefield, you know. So
Now, all of you made it home.
all made it home safe, didn't have a scratch.
Anyone, any newspapers, anybody publicize any kind of thing about this?
Yes, we have, we were in, then in, I think it was in 1947, we all got together at Myrie Studio in Laverne here and had our picture taken together. I have that out there. I forgot to bring it in.
Okay. I'll give that to you.
When you show that to us, can you turn it a little bit toward me? Not
It's
too far,
upside
because I
down.
still want to
It's
have
upside
It's
some
upside down.
It's
I
upside
gave it
down.
to you wrong. Can you turn it over?
Oh!
Now, I'd just like to have you, if you can, just explain what you have in front of you.
Turn it towards the camera just a little bit.
toward me just a
Toward-
little bit.
Just
There you go.
right there?
That's good. And just tell Keith about
Yeah,
that.
just
The
tell
top,
me.
the top 2 are here on the left are the insignia that you were in the infantry. One says U.S. and the other one has cross rifles.
Okay,
The next one right here
move your hand away. There you go. Very good.
was sharpshooter medal, which is probably why I wound up in the infantry. They had 3 different marksman, sharpshooter, and expert. I had never shot a gun until I was in the Army. These are my ribbons. First one is a Good Conduct Medal, and the second one, don't remember. Third one is Asiatic Pacific with 1 battle star. Third one is the Philippine Liberation Medal with 1 battle star. I was a sergeant in the service. CY is the Cyclone Division, the 38th Division they were National Guard outfit from Kentucky, Ohio, and Indiana. 149th Regiment is what I was with. They were from Kentucky. The middle one is the Bronze Star Medal,
Yeah, there you go.
which I received later on. I was transferred to the Black Hawk Division, 96th Division, where we trained the Philippine Army. This is a medal, discharge medal.
Oh,
I was overseas for a year and a half. You get these here 3 stripes, one for every 6 months. The president of the Philippine Islands honored the 149th Regiment with a presidential citation. That's what this one is.
okay,
That's the extent of the medals.
okay.
I was quite surprised to get this. This is a Bronze Star Medal. This is the Bronze Star Medal. Can I turn it and read it what it says?
Yes,
Yeah, let me
please.
get a-
Yes.
let me get a-
Turn it around one more time, he's, take a picture.
Stand by. Yep, I think we got it. Let me do a quick pan up a bit. Got it.
Now you read it, please.
The United States of America, to all who shall see these, presents greeting. This is certified that the President of the United States of America, authorized by Executive Order 24 August 1962, has awarded the Bronze Star Medal to Sergeant Theodore L. Aanenson, United States Army, for meritorious achievement in ground combat against the armed enemy during World War II in the Asiatic Pacific Theater of Operations. Given under my hand in the city of Washington the 16th day of September 1985, which was 40 years after
Oh,
overseas. I was the most surprised person in the world when I received this. Quite an honor.
do you know why it took so long, or did they tell you anything at all?
No. But I'm tickled pink about it.
I would like to ask you to back up and talk a little bit about what was going on when you guys were laying up in the foxholes. Were you actually engaged with the enemy?
Yes.
Were you in a lot of fighting at that time?
Yes.
Please explain that.
We'd every day we would capture another hill.
Start out by saying when we were located.
When we were located in Zambales Mountains.
Okay.
The second day after the first day I must tell you first before I forget. I was on watch, and I heard the rustling of the leaves in the trees. And I woke up the guy beside me. I says, "Here they come," but it wasn't. It was just. The next day we went up a hill, and the hill we were on the first night, the Japanese had infiltrated back and were back in the same one we had captured the night before. There was a lot of this, and then as we went further on, we came to a river. There we saw a number of Japanese, and we got rid of a whole bunch of them. One thing I remember so well is one Japanese soldier was lying on the ground. He had his stomach ripped open. Shall I shoot him? No, leave him be. Let him suffer. And he was just moaning and groaning and stuff. And we just had skirmishes, with the Japanese, and that's about all.
You said you were the only brother of the Aanensons that got into combat?
Yes.
So,
I was the only one that was in the infantry. I don't think the two brothers that were in Edwin was in the artillery in Germany, and and Arnie was he was in the quartermaster corps.
I would like you to share with us some thoughts. You were there when President Roosevelt died,
Yes.
and you mentioned the uncertainties of this new president. Now
Yes.
what? Can you share with us eventually what was the response from the fellows you were with regard to the new President Truman? Talk about that.
I guess we just heard it on over the loudspeaker, on the ship. I think we were more concerned of where we're going to go now, getting off the ship and what are we going to, It kind of passed on.
And what was the eventual feelings that the kids had or the men had toward President Truman? Did you care to share with us?
Was he? I don't remember. I don't know. No. They just wondered, what's going to happen now. No.
But you were out there when they dropped the bombs.
Yes.
All right. What was the response of the guys around you with regard to that happening?
What's going to come of this? I have a book, and in the book, this was after September 2, or during that time. A Japanese prisoner, American soldier, had mentioned to the Japanese prisoner that we dropped an atomic bomb had been dropped. Oh, did we do it? The Japanese says, no, we did it. Because he said we had been working on something like this also. I don't know. I didn't know that until.
No, I didn't either.
No.
Wow. Okay. When you think back, you were in for a little shorter amount of time. You got in late.
Yeah.
You got in when it was ugly.
Yeah, it was pretty much.
Getting
It was
close.
mopping up is what we did.
So what are you thinking now that it's all over? You've had time to think about this over the years. Well, what's your feeling about your participation during this war?
I couldn't hardly wait to get into the service. When I was 18, I didn't wait to get drafted. I said, please draft me, Before the war, there were so many movies, about the guys serving in the service, and everybody was gung-ho to get into service, And what can I say about it? I'm glad that I went, and I took a pic, I got home, and everything like that.
Anything come along during this time that maybe changed a little bit of the attitude that you had? You were so gung-ho back like many of them were.
Yeah.
What was it like when you came home?
It's sure different. It was sure different than the movies showed.
It was.
Yeah, we were all, John Wayne had a lot of movies, He took care of the Japanese all by himself,
Yes.
you
And you
know.
did
And
too.
if he can do it, I can do it.
And did you?
We tried.
We tried.
I'm not going to say that I did. You just
So,
hope you did, because you fired your rifle. And later on, I had a BAR, which is a Browning automatic rifle. You didn't fire it from your hip. You fired it from your...
you fired
you didn't fire it from your shoulder. You fired it from your hip. It was like a miniature machine gun.
Okay.
And I don't know why I got that. I must have been the strongest one in the group and the youngest.
Okay. Well,
But it worked well.
did you do a lot of hunting when you came home?
No, not until we were married. And I never, pheasant season, and my wife's brother says, you got to come along pheasant hunting. I don't have a gun. So I went to Johnson Hardware in Sioux Falls and bought a double-barrel shotgun. Went hunting, got my limit the first day. No.
So you still have
And then I hunted for a while, and then later on my son started hunting, and I had a Winchester 88 or 98, I don't remember, and I quit hunting and I gave him a gun to him.
You mentioned a son. Did you share your war experiences?
No,
with
my
your
son
family?
says, "Why don't you tell me, Dad?" No, but I don't.
Do you think you should?
If you recall, so many veterans don't talk, to civilians too much about their war experiences. In World War II, you couldn't get any information hardly out of these guys that served in combat. Why? I don't know. They wanted to keep it to themselves.
You mentioned civilians.
Yeah.
You would have been willing to talk with other guys that were like you.
Yes.
Okay, so why not the civilians? Just explain why not.
I don't know.
What's your opinion?
I imagine we learned it from from the World War II veterans, World War I. I'm sorry, veterans. That never talked too much about it.
We're seeing more and more of World War II veterans are now talking about it.
Yes.
In your opinion, you're willing to talk about it here.
A little bit. Yeah. So there's things, that you can't remember everything. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
But one thing I remember so well, there was always a shortage of water. Wherever we could get water, we got it. If there was a stream, we filled our canteen full of water. We had sulfur pills, which we dropped into the canteen. I remember there was a little puddle, with water in about this deep. Filled my canteen with water. Some of the guys would cut bamboo branches because the bamboo trees had full of water. They get their water that way.
Survival became crucial, obviously.
Yes.
What's your thoughts about what did you learn about yourself or whatever because of this?
I'm one that anything comes up, I can do it. When I went into the Army, my feeling was I can do it. To this day, whatever job I had, I can do it. I've always had a gung-ho feeling about life. And one thing more I wanted to mention to you during combat. We had sea rations, little cans of food. We would start a fire toward the latter part of the day and warm up these canteens and stuff. Terrible taste. There was always a pack of cigarettes. We got a pack of cigarettes every day. Every month we got a case of beer while the war was on. When towards the end, just before the war ended in September, there was an open space and the helicopters came up and dropped K rations. And after eating C rations, K rations were so good. It was more like fresh food. They had crackers and stuff, candy.
Little things like that become just.
At that time, were really important. It really built up your morale.
So you had a very positive attitude before you go into service, and you continued that during the service, and you kept it after the service.
Yes.
So were there any things though that changed you as a person because of the military?
I don't think so. I don't know. Other people could probably tell me, but I don't know if I don't know.
You don't feel like there was a lot of changes that took place? You made it? You did your duty?
Yes. I made it and did my duty, happy when it was over with.
Wow.
It reminds me of today in Iraq, if I may. We trained the Filipino soldiers to take care of the Hukbalahaps, or the communists. Guerrillas. In Iraq today, we're trying to teach the Iraqis army. And are we doing a good job? I'll let everybody else answer that, but I don't think they're doing a good job. But they don't want to. You know, what is the difference between we training the Filipinos in World War II and our Army training the Iraqis today? I don't know.
It's an
It just-
excellent question.
It's a good question.
It's a good question, and it's difficult to answer.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay,
So hopefully everything will turn out okay in there now.
I think you,
Knock
I
on
think
wood.
we're all in agreement
You bet.
that we hope that that's what happens.
You bet. You bet.
Well, Mr. Aanenson, I would like to thank you personally for what you contributed in World War II. It's an amazing story. It's an amazing family. What you people contributed. So, if your folks were around, they deserve the Medal of Honor.
Yeah,
If you
I think so too.
about it, they deserve it.
Yes.
And what they went through, must have been amazing. Other than that, I just want to thank you so much for coming over and participating in this program.
Thank you very, very much.